real life.
Yes.
Oh, wait, I don't want to record on the computer. Yeah, I do want to record on the computer. All right. I'll edit the first part. Welcome. I'm so excited. We're jumping in today talking about journey stories. And so I have two of our fellow nature inspired teachers on the call today. And so we're gonna do a series of these and hear lots of different people's journey stories of how they got to be where they are. And so really, we're just going to jump right in. And I think the first question is just we'll have each of you tell us about your journey and where you are, what you do, and kind of how you got to that place. So whoever wants to start.
Go ahead, Lise.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lisa. I run Little Bugs Nature Preschool as well as Muddy Bugs MD, which is an afternoon fully outdoor program. And Little Bugs is my morning preschool program. I run the program out of my home. So I'm licensed as a family childcare in Maryland. I have 8 little ones ranging from 2 to 4 years old. And we have a lot of fun every day. But the reason when I got started, so I've been licensed for 9 years now. And initially I have 2 daughters. The oldest is 12 and my youngest is 10. So initially when I started, I just wanted to be home with them. That was kind of my jump off point. Hey, I want to stay home at the same time making an income. I'm very lucky that I have a husband who worked in construction for a while. So he built us a beautiful addition that now holds my classroom, and we live close to the Chesapeake Bay. So that's a huge part of our program. And so, yeah, so I've been licensed for that long, almost 10 years now, which is a big milestone.
That is.
And throughout that time, when I started out, it was kind of a big, I was going through like these motions of what do I really want to do? Where do I want to be? And one of the things that I noticed was that what I was doing, what I think of traditional childcare with themed weeks and calendar time and all of those things just wasn't working for all of my students. And I think that was a big pivotal change for me where I was like, something needs to change. And I'm originally from Germany, raised, my whole family's still over there. And I kind of thought back to what did I do when I was a child, or what did I enjoy? And a lot of those memories were outdoors. So I really started digging in and said, what is out there? What is happening? What can I read about outdoor learning? And I just found this huge movement of nature-based learning, environmental education, nature learning. And I slowly started with International Outdoor Classroom Day. That was kind of my jumping point. I said, okay, we're just going to do this day outdoors, guys. And that was kind of the start. And I noticed this is fun. We had a wonderful time. Yes, it was extra work, muddy clothes and all, but I just noticed that the children were just so much happier. And so I just went back to my roots. I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be outdoors more. Heather and I took the Eastern Region Association of Forest and Nature School nature-based training for a whole week, the certification training. And that was where I really said, okay, this is where I'm moving, and I just keep learning. I grew up gardening, I grew up outdoors, but I'm definitely not an expert. But as we're going along with each child that comes in the program, I feel like I'm growing in different areas and wanting to learn more about different areas because they enjoy it. So I'm a learner alongside them, and I'm really just excited to see where else this is going to go and what else we're going to discover and wonder about in the next couple years. And yeah, so that's my starting jump up point.
That's awesome, Lisa. And it's neat to kind of hear that evolution of how things change, because I think sometimes people feel like, well, they have to wait till they know certain skills or be a naturalist or something. And it's
oh my gosh, yes. That's especially the plant identification. Being from Germany, a lot of the native plants I wasn't familiar with. I used to forage for mushrooms with my father, but here I would never do that because I'm not familiar with any of them. But I had a student who was really interested and wanted to learn more. So that really got us into foraging and exploring what is really growing out in our backyard. So yeah, it's definitely a journey for sure.
All right. And Heather, how about you? What's your, tell us about your journey.
Well, I started in Montessori as my foundation. I am certified birth to six in the Montessori philosophy. And I was a program director and a lead teacher at a Montessori school and a local private institution, K to 12, here in Maryland, McDonough School. It was starting a pre-K program. And I had never worked in a traditional setting before. And they were interested in an inspired program. So I threw my hat in the ring and ended up getting the job and helped them create their pre-K program and finalize the curriculum. And it was an amazing experience for me there because I was given a budget that I'd never had before. And I was able to, I was used to cutting coupons and going to Goodwill. I still have that mentality. Thank goodness I did learn it because now I use it again. I never stop using it, but in my own life, but in my professional life, having that large of a budget seemed amazing. And also I was a little bit in feeling guilty, I think, for having that privilege. But I turned it around and I said, how can I really use this and grow something new? And admin allowed me some professional development that was very generous. And I went to an original forest and folk kindergarten out of California. They came to the East Coast, and that was in Asheville, North Carolina. And that was really early on when I started with them. So that may have been around 2015, maybe. And I went to North Carolina for the weekend, and that was amazing. And that was all forest outside. Now, I will say it was just dipping my toe in. That was a bit of a stretch. I wasn't just, I was like submersing myself that weekend. I was like, whoa, what am I doing? But I loved it. I loved it. And then I went back to the very traditional setting, was trying to, get other people involved. And I realized I was like, I got to slow it down a bit. And because that is part of my personality. Ask Lisa. I just jump in and I figure it out and I tread water for a while and then I float. But I said, they allowed me some more professional development, and I went to ARIFANS, the Eastern Regional Association of Forest and Nature Schools, their level 1. And that was maybe 2018, I think. And then I worked with them for a while, facilitating some programming. And McDonough was not biting the bait, was not taking the bait. And nor were my lovely teachers. And it has nothing to do with them. Really, I created their outdoor classroom. We developed a nature-based curriculum, and I was trying to share it amongst the other subject matters because we had specials, and eventually it was, I realized that it was just going to be me, and I said, okay, I'm fine with that. We got the outdoor classroom. I was, had gardening. We were moving everything outside here and there, and then the pandemic hit, and this was just a silver lining for me. It was really hard, I know, for a lot of people, and I do respect that. But I have to say that a lot of people changed their lives during that time for many reasons. And some were priorities that needed to change, some were lifestyles. So personally and professionally, my life changed. And because I was a director and a lead teacher and a program facilitator before, I knew how to create a licensed program. I just never had a family program before.
Mhm.
So I said to my husband, I was like, hey, how do you feel about this? We live on 4 acres, which I'm very grateful for as well. And he said, sure, go for it. And next thing you know, we had the pandemic garden, and I had a licensed family childcare out of my home. You can see I'm in my classroom right now. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I would not trade it for the world. And then I meet Lisa in level 2 training. I met her in level 1 and was facilitating then. And level 2 we took together, and I was like, I dig this gal. And we have a lot of the same kind of outlook and perspectives. And that's really important if you're going to be partnering up with someone.
Mhm.
And so I started training for the Maryland State Department of Education for Train the Trainers. That was another part of my journey. So I don't stop ever.
No. She doesn't.
And so I got my approval from them, and I just started doing workshops for air fans for the approval because in Maryland you have to have clock hours for
Okay.
licensed programs.
Mhm.
That's the other part. Maryland is really strict, and that is the licensing piece for us is really hard. And we can get into that a bit more later, but to provide clock hour approved trainings, I just started churning them out and really saying, this is where I want to be. This is who I want to be with. I want to be with like-minded people. I want to be with people that share my passion. I want children. I want families that understand this to come and share their lives with me. And I love, children in early childhood or where I am. And then the nature passion just rides the same track.
Yeah.
So that is a roundabout way of
Yeah.
how.
No, I
I'm
mean,
here.
I think it's great to hear that evolution of for
Mhm.
each of your journeys of like how
Mhm.
you've gotten to where you are. And I have never run a family childcare program, but I've worked with a lot of family childcare providers here in Vermont. And there is a freedom and an autonomy that you get to
Mhm.
have when you have your own program. And I think sometimes when people are they feel like they're working against a system. So they're like either they're in, a program, a childcare center, or even in a public school setting, and they just really feel isolated in it.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And so I think when you're the decision maker and you're running your own business and you get to have that autonomy, I think can feel almost like a liberation for many
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you've met each other and then you started to offer some conferences, is that right? Or did you start
Correct.
doing workshops first, I guess?
Go
I
ahead.
think we did. I think we just started with conferences. I think we just kind of played with the idea because Heather and I had both been to the trainings that where you're just like, oh, okay, I've done this one 1,000 times, and you just
Mhm.
kind of like it just goes in one ear and out the other. I'm sorry, but so
Mhm.
I think we just try to think of ways to, especially being so passionate about being family childcare providers. There wasn't a lot of trainings out there in Maryland that really focused on that group of and childcare providers in general.
Mhm.
So, and I know there's sometimes that hesitancy of going outside or that
Mhm.
resilience piece. So for us, we really were inspired to provide trainings that are interesting, that are hands-on, and that are nature inspired, that have nature woven in it. And just like you were saying earlier, April, we really try to meet people where they are. I
Mhm.
mean, I definitely didn't start, hey, we're going to spend 75% of our day outdoors. It was a slow, it took a while to get there where we are now. I mean, even today it was very rainy, and in the back of my head, I'm thinking, oh, it's gonna be a wet and rainy day. But I had to change that perspective myself and said, it's a warm weather day. We're gonna have a great time. The kids want to be outdoors, so we're doing this, and we understand that a lot of teachers feel the same way. It's definitely that comfortable and step that you have to, that it's a journey. And our trainings, we hope to just inspire people.
Mhm.
And just my main goal is always to get as many children outdoors as possible for any amount of time. So these trainings were definitely part of that passion of teaching as many teachers and parents, homeschooling families as possible to get their children outdoors.
Nice.
And that is the way to hit more children, is
Mhm.
through teachers, right? I mean,
Mhm.
so you impact the impact is, you know, it's just exponential once you hit the, the trainings. And I will add to Lisa's in that, I started out virtually. I started out with workshops online, presenting them. And then, as Lisa mentioned, it was just by just and just say, hey, we were getting, because of the training at MSDE, the trainers, the organizer there is a woman named Debbie Langer, and she's amazing. And she truly works with us as trainers and provides us opportunities to grow and become stronger at training. So she sends us the RFP submission announcements for any conferences, any organizations that are having conferences. And what started out as something, a couple of workshops, really blossomed into conference presentations. It could be an hour and a half or 3 hours. And then the 3 hours ended up turning into full day conferences. And that's when, Lisa and I were like, we should probably do this a little bit more. And it's a lot of fun. And
Mhm.
really, we're surrounded by little people all the time because we're family childcare providers, right? And so we need some interaction with
Adult
adults.
time. Yes, we do.
So that helps us,
Mhm.
so selfishly, it works out that way for us. And then it is more of that, helping others see how nature can be woven throughout your program, whether it's, dipping your toe in or jumping off of a pier. It's however you can weave it and involve it into your program. We just want to help you figure out how to do that for you. And that has, we've done a couple of national conferences and, state run or statewide conferences. And then we've formed our own organization. So that was really exciting. So we just decided that this can be something that we can do, in addition to the family childcare, and it's going to happen. And it did. And I was like, wow, it happened. So we're now Nature Learning Collective.
Awesome.
And we're doing the conferences and seasonally, and then subject matters. We're scooping up any human being that's interested in nature and children, and we're
I was
dragging
about to
them
say
along
that.
with us.
So
It's fun.
It's fun because we when we do our conferences, we also meet so many inspiring people that inspire
Mhm.
us. And a lot of times they offer something that we don't have and we want to learn more about. So we try to bring in different people and have them share their journey and their experiences and their passions with others. And that has been for me the most exciting part, meeting and networking with others and learning about their journey and their experiences and maybe what I need to think about more. So I think
Yeah.
that has been fun.
Well, and I
And
think-
perspectives, perspective taking for us. I mean, and not to, I don't make light of it at all. I mean, we are two white women, and our voice, we try to get, people of color, and we want that representation amongst our tribe. So I think it's really important because as Lisa said, we're not experts
Mhm.
in everything. I would say I'm still learning through life, but I would I would never speak to something that I have never had experience in, but we all need to have experience and we all need knowledge of it.
Mhm.
So that is something that we're constantly on the lookout for, is, those voices for representation.
Absolutely. And I think I love the word collective as part of your, as what you're working on in the Nature Learning Collective, because really I feel like, and Claire Warden from Scotland talks a lot about the mycelium and how, we have across the globe people who are doing this work and that we're all connected to one another. And what I find in this field, particularly in this niche of early childhood education, is that people want to share freely. And
Yes.
I feel like the more that we can give the opportunity for people to share their voices, the more we strengthen the field as a whole and the more wisdom we gain from each person's
Absolutely.
perspectives.
I
So
think one thing that's been really interesting is that we're meeting, not just educators, we're meeting occupational therapists, we're meeting speech pathologists, we're meeting psychologists, we're meeting experts in their fields that interact with children in one capacity or another, and they're interested in moving their practice into a more nature-based setting. Having that nature connection and finding where nature could supplement and complement what they do.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a
So-
huge success when we start to see that cross-pollination too, rather than being like very much in these individual silos of like, oh, well, you're a family childcare and you're this person, and that. And it's like, no, wait, when we work in a more holistic manner and we bring together those fields, there's that synergy and that cross-pollination of like, oh, we can take what is working well in these nature-based programs and see how does that impact in, in the psychology or in, in different types of ways. So I think that's amazing. So with your reach or who you're mostly presenting to, it seems like most of the things that you do in person are in Maryland. Is that right? Or you're traveling a little bit?
No, we've been traveling a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Me too. I'm like, yeah, it's fun to be like, okay, the pandemic is sort of done. We can try again and go and present in other places. But yeah, I want to hear about that. So what are like, how do, what's your capacity? Like, do you obviously you're still running your programs too. So do you travel just certain times of the year or how does that work?
Well, I think our families are different too. My child's grown and I have two crazy dogs, and a very supportive partner. And, Lisa's, is in the midst of tween teen. And so I won't speak to her experience, but I'm a little bit more flexible in what I can do and what I can't do. And we do complement each other in that way too.
When I think that's part of this partnership is that Heather's always like, only if you can do it, Lisa. She's always like checking in with me because yes, and so we're very busy at times. My year is planned out for the whole year, pretty much. I mean, every month is something, but that's where she's like, hey, if you can do this one, that's great. If not, not a big deal. And that's the great part about this collective is that we have other people that can kind of fill in and everybody has things that they do really well and we complement each other. But we have been traveling just for national conferences wise. For me personally, I'm like, I'd like to stay in Maryland. It's a little harder for me to go outside of Maryland. But Heather, I mean, what was Natural Start Alliance was
Ohio.
Yeah. So, and it was another one of our collaborators in our collective is Catherine Para. And she saved our butts for the last two national conferences. There's National Association for Family Childcare was out in San Francisco, and we were heading out there, and it was a big mishap with my plane. So it was a whole big thing. One day, this planes stopped going, and I was like, "What? wait, what's going on all over? I mean, I was stuck in North Carolina it was a mess. So she presented in San Francisco there. And then Natural Start Alliance was Ohio. And then we're always applying for other submitting for any other RFPs. But I will say Maryland is where we really are trying to focus our energies because we are here. And so Lisa mentioned she's by the Chesapeake Bay. Maryland is so diverse and it really is big that we've tried to branch out and find representation amongst the regions as well. So Lisa's in Southern Maryland. I'm in Central Maryland, right 20 minutes northwest of Baltimore, 25 minutes. And then a colleague, Jamie, is in Washington County. So she's moving out towards the mountain part of Maryland. And so we submit conferences. We're organizing conferences with other people more often than traveling for national conferences, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that the work that we do, it's nice when we are gathered in person and get to see different programs. I know it's kind of like you're having that lived experience. So if you're doing like a national conference and you're in a hotel, it's like, yeah, we can come up with something that's interesting. But when we get to visit, some of the times that I've been able to present in person at different places or have people come to my program, it's fun because then you can really see what does the outdoor classroom look like and how does it look in real life and how do we function in there. So with what I was thinking of another question. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. RFP, because we've heard that acronym twice, is request for proposals.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. We have so many acronyms, but I always try to, I keep a list. Actually, on my blog, I have a list of educational acronyms.
Oh, that's such a great idea.
Well, because I work with undergraduate students too. And so I'm like, these are not going to give you a quiz on it. There's no flashcards, but you're going to want to know these. And so the request for proposals, if that's something new, because I know that in our group, in our Nature Inspired Teacher group, there's educators who are just getting started, folks who've been doing it for a while. And I think a really great growth edge is presenting. And so it doesn't mean that you have to be like an expert or have published articles or have a book or, whatever. Like you don't have to have this huge social following to present what you know. And often practitioners, people who are in the field, they want to learn from others who are doing the actual work. And so I think even just having a little bit more of experience or just sharing what you've done can be really powerful. And so anyone who's watching this, who's thinking, oh, I've always wanted to present, but I never had the courage.
Do it.
Yeah. And, and so maybe you can kind of speak to like that, when if someone is on the fence and thinking, oh, maybe I would do that. Like what are some words of wisdom, I think, for them to encourage them to do it?
I mean, for me personally, it was Heather that kind of pushed me to do this.
Pulled you in.
pushed me into it. But I think, I'm definitely an extrovert, I'm not gonna lie.
No.
Can't tell at all. But I always felt like, I was like, well, what am I going to share? Like, I'm not an expert at any of these things, but Heather was like, no, I want you to do this. Like, let's do it. You got this. And I mean, the fact that we just got to present at NACE, that just blew my mind because 4 years ago, I attended as an attendee. And I was sitting in the crowd thinking, okay, Lisa, one day you might be up there presenting, just one day. And when Heather was like, okay, Lisa, we're gonna submit for NACE, I was like, okay, like that's never gonna happen. And it did. And it was, and I wasn't even nervous, which was funny. It just felt really comfortable after having done some talks. And I just really loved sharing what we did because I knew what we were sharing was something that we were passionate about.
And practical.
Practical. And we kind of have found what works well for us and where we feel the most comfortable. And that is definitely building those personal relationships with who is in the room. We don't want to be standing up on top talking the entire time. We really building those personal relationships. And for me, what works best for me is talking to people ahead of time and smiling at them, having that side conversation before I get up there, because that makes it more personal for me. And it makes me feel good. Like, this is going to be a great time. It's in that. And so I think words of wisdom is just to go for it. You're definitely going to be nervous, but that's okay. It gets better. And to just give it a shot. If you have something to share, if you feel like, wow, this is really what I'm passionate about, share it with the world, because somebody else like Heather or I or you might want to learn about it or might want to know about it. And you should never not share what you are passionate about.
That's great.
Yeah. I would say everyone has a story, and you were saying you don't have to be an expert, but you do have to know some stuff. You have to have a story, and I think really what led me to want to do something like that was to really say, I've had some experience in life, and I've had some experience with my career. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and it feels like now it's this momentum that's building. And nature-based learning and outdoor education, environmental literacy, and environmental education, all of it really helped save me and kept me in early childhood education, I will say.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to see another side of children that I hadn't seen before.
Yes.
So if you experience that, it would be detrimental to the world for you not to share it.
Ooh, big word there, Heather.
How about that?
Now you have.
It would be
call to action.
Yeah, call to action. It would be detrimental. I'm serious though. In some ways, it is so important, because even if your story or what you are sharing helps 2 people, it helps how many children then, right? And I will say also that, what else am I going to do? I'm 51. I'm not getting any younger. I'm actually, in that transitional space. I'm trying to figure out what's next for me, what's next for, this brain of mine that can only handle so much. I think just do it. I think it's really important. If there's something in life that's made a difference for you, if there was an experience with a child out in nature, if there's anything that was an aha moment for you. I know sometimes when you're doing any workshops or conferences, and that it's that question, what has led you to be outside? What was your experience? We've met so many people from different walks of life that are doing what we're doing, educating young children out in nature, having nature play, however you call it, play, learning, education, all of it is play is learning is play. But it's going to impact somebody. Sure. We've seen someone go out in parks, create a program just in a park. They didn't have a yard. They didn't have a business. They didn't have, so they did it. I mean, it's really having all those different inspirations just trickling down, like raining down on you, and just figuring out what can I absorb from that.
Yeah. And I think when you share from your heart of what it is that you want to do, and if it's like, this is where I'm at right now, and this is what, this is my understanding of it. I have found, when I first started presenting, which was about 10 years ago, it was because there was someone, just like Lisa got pushed into it. I felt like I got pulled into it, and she was like, we really need you to talk. Because I was teaching, I had started, or a friend and I had started a nature-based preschool program at a museum. And so this person said, we want you to present science workshops for early childhood educators. And I was like, okay, maybe one day, and to even though I had a lot of experience with that, and I already was teaching at the community college level, I was like, I don't know. And then I realized, oh, I get it. Like, I don't have to show up perfect. I just have to show up with what I have and say what's working now. And one of the things for me is I was making like $50 for these workshops that I was doing. And then I would take all $50 and reinvest it in like the next one. And so I was using like that money, sort of like seed money, to buy books or materials or whatever. And then the next time I offered a workshop, I had more, like I had done more with my students because, I had that money. And it's interesting that you talked about budget, because I think sometimes a hesitation on folks is like, well, I don't have a lot of money, to buy materials. And what's beautiful, I think, about nature-based approaches is like, when you're in harmony with the seasons, you have loose parts all around you.
Yes.
And so, getting started in doing workshops was just within my, city, or I don't even live in a city, I live in a town, but in my town. And then they were, a couple of people were like, oh no, we need you to present, at the state level. And I was like, oh my gosh, and the first workshop, I remember there was like 70 people in this hotel. And I thought, what am I doing here? They should have, some PhD or some other person. And they were like, no, we want practitioners, people who are really in the field, really doing the work. And after that statewide conference, I was like, okay, I get it, and there was such good feedback from it about, that's what we want. We want practical, we want, things that don't cost money, or things that are really affordable, or those stories of like, oh, that's how you manage that, and that's how you make it work. And so I think that's part of the, to me, like, for folks to just getting started, whether they're just starting their program or just starting on this journey of doing presentations, like, jump in where you are, and when you're honest about where you are, people like that,
Yeah.
I think too, you having each other is nice too, because there's that sense of like, we can give each other a pep talk too.
We do. You should see our text message thread. It's silly. It's ridiculous. I like.
Well, and it's also when we bring stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm bringing this. And let me tell you, Heather always brings more than she was on her list every time. I'm like,
It's true.
Okay. Always.
I want
to, because we kind of combine our resources when we do present.
Yes, that is true. But I will say, you mentioned budget and being paid. We really, we haven't been paid, like, not the national conferences. When you submit, I mean, you're generally, you're having to pay to get there,
and pay for entering as well,
and pay to attend.
Yes.
So really, the only thing we charge, what I feel is a very nominal fee. I mean, we're paying keynote speakers. So in Maryland, there are two options for conferences. You can have what's called a conference, which includes a keynote speaker and workshops. There has to be some time for networking, and of course breaks, and then evaluations at the end. All that is like very specific in an agenda. And then the other choice is a professional development institute, which is minus a keynote. So you're still going to get the same amount of hours. It's just longer, I guess, workshops, or more opportunities for more workshops. But and then there's just one-offs, which would be just a training, a workshop. So yeah, we charge, you know, a fee because we have to, and I would love to give give things away, but what we've also realized is free, they don't necessarily respect free.
Mhm.
And even I've worked with organizations that have received grants and tried to give workshops away, and just people don't come.
Mhm.
So I have to pay, we pay everybody that comes, because I know if what it's like, I know what it feels like to not have been paid. It is a way to help representation again.
Mhm.
Um, for us, you know, at national levels, we're representing nature-based learners, and there's not a whole lot of that. And I'm okay right now to take the hit there for me and my family.
Same here.
And I write it off because it's part of my business anyway.
Mhm.
So if I do travel, it is a write-off, but it's not anything that we're making a whole lot of money for. It's a lot of time. It is a lot to organize workshops and conferences. And, you know, we spend a lot of time at night doing this. But again, if we weren't passionate about it, if we didn't feel like it was worth it, we wouldn't be doing it.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to add that piece in there,
Yeah.
because it's really important. If you can't afford to sink some money into the initial going and presenting at conferences, then I'd keep it local, and your impact is just as great. It really is.
Mhm.
I think if you're going out and presenting at conferences, that's more of a getting a presence or
Like
a
almost like a professional portfolio.
portfolio.
Yeah.
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 That's how I think about
It helps out a little bit. And because once we compiled them all on our website, and I was like, wow, look at
Wow,
that.
look at
It
us.
flew our mind a little bit. Yeah.
Like, oh, and we're adding more as the, you know, it's like, wow, okay,
That's
cool. It
awesome.
feels good. It feels
Mhm.
good because I know what we're doing makes a difference.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think so. I know when you all were presenting at NAUIC, it was, you know, it was like, oh, it's in DC. And so for me, I didn't put an RFP in for that because I thought, you know, it's right around Thanksgiving. You know, we have older family, you know, I'm like, I don't know. And then like the cost of it, like to drive, you know, I'm in Vermont, so to drive to DC and then to have a hotel and then to pay the conference fee, it's like, you know, it could have come together and I could have written it off as a business expense for myself too. But then I'm like, wait, you know, and I ended up at a different conference that weekend here in Vermont. And it was a technology conference, which to be the nature-based educator going to a tech conference was like,
Yes.
but that's where, you know,
That's where the opportunity is to open people's minds.
yeah. And so I had a really small group. There was only 6 that attended, but those 6 were really excited about it. And several of them were like, this is what I was most excited about. I've never seen anything like this at this conference. And this is what we want, you know, they were doing a lot with farm to school and they were like, we want more of this. And, you know, and so I was like, okay, you know, so that's kind of where you figure out too, like, it's not just about, you know, building an amazing portfolio, but like the impact that you have. And so starting regionally is really smart because it's not an outlay of a lot of cost. Plus you have people that you know, and so they build you up and give you some confidence or bring a coffee or do something to like, you got this. And then you can kind of spread your wings and decide like where to go with it. But
I would say your local resources would be a great, like, so we
That's a good point.
present at Maryland State Child Care Association and the Maryland State Family Child Care Association. There's several organizations here that help promote conferences. So they'll send out information about workshops and conferences or learning symposiums, all different names of things. But once you tap into that, each county actually has opportunities. And if you want to go micro, you know, if you want to go uber local, try to
Yeah.
find those resources for
And
you.
once you start digging, there's so much. I
Yes.
mean, Heather is always telling like, oh, I talked to this person, this, and it's mind blowing how many people are out there that
Mhm.
want to do, that are in the early childhood education field
Yeah.
that
And I
want to connect.
like what you were saying at the beginning too, is like, you can't just continue to go to things that it's like the same
Mhm.
information.
Yes.
So for me too, like as a presenter, what I have started to do is really think about what is the description of what I'm doing and what are the learning objectives. And that's something that's required here in Vermont, is you have to write your
Mhm.
learning objectives very
Mhm.
specific. And then to stick to it, because what I find is I'll go, in the past I've gone to things and it's written like, oh, this is not an introductory level, but this is sort of like, an advanced course or, a deeper dive into whatever. And then
Mhm.
you get there and it's a very surface level thing. And you're like,
Yes.
so I think part of like getting clear about why you're doing or what you're going to be covering, and then describing it and then delivering what you said you were going to do is
Mhm.
another important probably takeaway of like having good having the impact that you want to have.
Yes. Yes.
I think it's important to be organized as well. And that's
Mhm.
really tough for me. I have ADHD, and I will, we're both self-proclaimed. And I need to have, I mean, Google
Oh,
Drive is
keeps us
our
organized.
it's our blessing. I mean, it really, because it also allows us to collaborate,
And
Mhm.
share.
at the same time or whenever we can. So if I can work early in the morning and get stuff done, I can communicate that with her, and then she can hop on and edit what I did or add what she needs to add. Or
Mhm.
she's our tech queen. So
Mhm.
she does, and she works with Canva, and some of the stuff is, to look professional is really important, so
Mhm.
that you actually present like what you're doing. um so that's been part of our journey as well. And
I also want to share rituals have really become part of our presentation, our conferences, especially when we found that out with time. So we started doing I think it's been the last 3 or 4, we've done mandalas at the end, nature mandalas and a gratitude mandala at the end of each conference, where everyone shares, or if they're willing to share, what they're thankful for, or what they enjoyed. And that has been, I cry, we all cry every single time, every single time. But I think this is, I told Heather after the first time we did it, I was like, you need to do this because it's nice for everyone. And it's
Mhm.
really, it makes everyone feel good. And that ritual has now become part of our conference, which has been incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think having those rituals, it's like, I don't know, it seals in like that
Mhm.
experience,
Yeah.
and it gives an example of things that you can do, or that they can take back with them. And I
Yes.
think making those connections between doing it and experiencing it firsthand, and then also bringing that back. And one other thought that I had that I think is digital photography and really capturing what you're doing with your children, I think can be really powerful. And I don't share out photographs of actual kids' faces in my workshops or things that I do, but I love to show examples of like, and most of my trainings are not, well, if we're doing it virtually, then we have the slide deck. But I think having examples for people so that they can really see it and picture it for themselves has been really important. And for many of my slide decks, I'll share, people will reach out and say, oh, I'm doing this such and such, can I use some of your pictures? And I'm like, sure. And I don't worry about it, because that's the whole idea of impact, right? Like, it's not like, these are mine and I'm, copywriting them and whatever, but it's like, no, we want to share. And just like you said, when we use that leverage point of working with other educators, they impact so many other kids.
Yeah.
So, well, we're nearing our time to finish. So if you have a last thought or two, and then I want to definitely be sure to share where people can follow you. If you have, I don't know, do you have some social media for the Nature Learning Collective? Okay.
Yes, we do. So naturelearningcollective.com is our website. And then we are on Instagram as well, and on Facebook. So you can find us there. And then personally for me, and that's kind of I was kind of want to jump off what you just said of like the outreach. For me, I definitely, there's good things and bad things about social media, but what I've really found for social media is sharing my kids outdoors and what we're doing, and that it can be very simple and just playing in the mud and sliding in the mud. Sharing that with others has really become a passion of mine. And Little Bugs Nature Preschool on Instagram has definitely, I've met so many amazing educators from nationwide, internationally, who have reached out. So that has been like one of my successes, basically, which what I'm passionate about. And that's what I love to do for Nature Learning Collective as well, is that social media, because that does have a wider impact as well.
Yeah. And then since we're just organizing ourselves into this entity, it's a slow go. Like the website is up, and stop. I don't either. That was weird. Did you hear that? I don't know how to respond to that. Me either. So I think, that slow growth. And if we're not, I think the majority of what you're going to be able to capture about what we do is through our own individual social media platforms. So, Lisa's, the other thing I want to mention is I have found, because we are who we are, meaning all of us educators, I've been in environments before where it's been very proprietary, and very, this is my idea. This is my, I started this and I wrote this lesson plan, and you can't, and no, you're not. And that always blew my mind. It always did. And now in this platform, this, I will say, practice and pedagogy, the sharing is incredible. And it's always that appreciation too. Like I'll see something and I'll be like, although I'm not always that great at social media, but I think inspired by this person, and just give them a shout out, and they might not have even thought of it. They found it on someone else's. So I see that a lot, and I see it a lot with Lisa, and the kids are like, where did you figure out? And I was like, online. What are you doing? That's what we talk about. But I'm Hummingbird Hill Nature Preschool for all social media, and then Hummingbird Hill Nature Preschool, and then I'm hummingbirdhill.org is my website.
Okay.
Outside of Nature Learning Collective. But hopefully we'll be organizing into something more. Right now we're a for-profit. We're not a nonprofit, which, we're learning businesses too as we go. So
yeah. And I think not to get overwhelmed by it, and take it by bit, because I know it can be like, oh, and now I have to do this, and now I have to, and as soon as you feel like that you're posting on social media because you have to, it's like, no. I'm doing it because it's like, this is a really great idea, and I'm excited
and you want to share it,
rather than it's, I have to share something every 5 hours. It's like, forget that, that's not not what we want to do.
Part of that also is being able to show people at large what you're doing, but it also helps your parent base and your community building aspect extremely locally in your own town. And it is an easy way for parents to share with their parents and their families. I know some people have separate Facebook accounts for their families. I can't, my brain would explode. But I, just in order to have all of that get out there, I think social media is beneficial for that purpose.
Absolutely. And I think too that you've taken the steps to have that certification for other Maryland providers is important. Like for me, I have that for Vermont, and it's sad because in the United States we have 50 different states, and so every state has their own system.
That's
and
ridiculous.
I know, and a lot of times people are like, oh, would you come and present here? And I'm like, okay, well, for sure, I have the capacity to do that. And what does that look like? So even to
Mhm.
present, in one state over, it's like sometimes it's a huge amount of paperwork. So having people who, like you all who have done some of that legwork and know the logistics, I think it just helps build the capacity of our field, and it's good. And so if anybody is like watching and thinking, oh, I want to get started in this and it's too complicated, don't let it be complicated. Start
Mm-mm.
local and then
That's
reach
right.
out. And I think in our Nature Inspired Teacher group, that we have a lot of people who do this kind of work,
Yes.
do the workshops or trainings sort of on the side to what their other work is. And
Mhm.
the more, I think that you're right, it's not some people are proprietary, but I
Yeah.
do feel like within this niche that we're really wanting to support each other. And there's so
Absolutely.
much good free stuff out there to share.
Yeah. I forgot we started a Facebook group, which is going to turn into Nature Learning Collective. But as of now, it's Tree Hugger Teachers of Maryland. So it was just a way to anchor us in our state and try to gather
Yeah.
voices and different people who were interested in that. So that's another
Yeah.
way to
That's another
start
group.
in your area.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's really easy to start a Facebook group and just say, hey,
Mhm.
I want to
Yes.
work with other people in my region who are interested in these kinds of things. And
Yeah.
it can take off from there for sure. All right. Well, we could talk for like 6 hours and then
Yeah.
still get up the next morning and talk for 10 more. But we're going to probably call it a wrap here. Thank you guys so much for being here and sharing your ideas. And I hope hope I get to see you in person soon.
I would
Yeah.
love that.
That
Thank you
was
so much,
amazing.
April.
Yeah, I
Thank
grew
you
up
so
in
much.
Delaware. So Maryland, I grew up in
Oh.
Delaware in Dover. And so Maryland is like, kind of like going home, except
Yeah.
none of my family still lives in Delaware. So I don't
Well,
go there.
whenever you're around, we
Yeah,
have a
when you're
spare
around,
room.
come visit.
Oh, okay. All right. That's perfect. I'll take you up on it. All right. Thanks.
Please do.